if you're an Android user looking for the perfect podcast player to put under the Christmas tree or the Hanukkah bush, I believe, or whatever holiday it is that you celebrate, check out the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store. There are thousands of great reviews touting all the wonderful features, so you can hear directly from the people who use it how much they like it and why they do. That's the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store. If you're hearing this on the day of release, you are just a few clicks away from a whole mess of bonus content over on Patreon at patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. If you become a member of our Patreon at the $5 a month level, you get a monthly bonus episode. This month's, which may be up today. There's a lot of content dropping today on the feed. But there's a full-length Back to the Future coming. There is a special secret commentary track that I'm excited to record, and 11 hours plus of bonus content in addition to that. You get all of that instantly when you sign up and become a member at the $5 a month level. And then every 3 months, you get a new bonus episode until we hit our 150 a month mark. And at that point, there will be a bonus episode every single month for every $5 member. That's right, a bonus episode every month for a $5 level. Once we hit $150 a month, we're halfway there. So visit patreon.com/dissectingthe80s and learn more now.
Things we're gonna cut out in editing.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. Happy holidays to whatever you celebrate. We hope you're doing all right. It's a tough time of year for a lot of folks under any circumstances, but this year is especially tough for a lot of folks. So we hope you're doing well, and we're bringing this one to you a little early in the hopes that anybody who might need a little boost today, if we can provide any sort of small boost for you, we hope that we've done that. So hopefully you'll enjoy the episode you're about to listen to, and here's to a brighter tomorrow. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers, and with me, as always, is a man who has always found gifts under the tree, never a lack of present, the Macho Mandrew.
Andrew Lano. You're going for the nice list, not a jab at poor people.
Oh man, yes, that's a really dark way to take it.
Every Christmas movie is like, oh, look at the poor kids who don't get presents. Santa works on an economic scale.
In this movie, Santa is real, so all of that stuff is on the table. A movie I am genuinely thrilled to be talking about. I'm very excited for this discussion that's coming up.
Oh boy.
Not because I liked the movie, but because I think there are a lot of things that I want to dig into with this. I was just
I will.
So many notes. I will
let you have that.
Anyway. Celebrating its 35th anniversary this year is Santa Claus: the movie with John Lithgow and Dudley Moore. We watched it, so you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your long, boring Christmas movie. Something's going on about your long, boring Christmas movie.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott.
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Total agreement on the Christmas movie being long and boring.
It is nearly 2 hours, and the first hour has zero conflict. So, like, you're not... Like, just from a purely technical script writing concept, if you have written an hour of movie in which there is no conflict, hit the backspace. Better yet, hold the backspace down, because you fucked up.
You're allowed to make that mistake in your first draft. You don't have to delete it all. You just have to go fix it.
Yeah, backspace.
Well, no, sometimes it's like click in, inserting a couple of scenes, adding some changes. You don't have to just wholesale throw out the whole bathwater and the baby included. Let me pitch you a $500 rewrite on this movie that I think will change your whole thing.
That's usually my job on this podcast.
Okay. But I'm going to try that here. Because I don't like this movie. I want to be clear. Like, spoiler alert for the end of the episode, I am not going to recommend
It's got some
this.
charm, but it is just too boring.
There are, however, a whole mess of things that I think make this movie really fascinating to talk about. Starting with, number one, my least favorite thing that is happening now in Reboot Mania 2020 is unnecessary backstory about a character who doesn't need you to do this. Examples like the Nurse Ratched show, which many people like, and it's fine to like those things. But
like all Ryan Murphy shows, it starts strong and ends in a fiery blaze.
But it's not just that. It's like the Solo movie, I'm naming things that I don't personally like. I am sure there are things that fit this category that are better and more enjoyable, and I'm just not coming to mind. But like all of the bits that happen in those things, which are like the movie taking time to aggressively nudge you in the ribs and be like, hey, it's the thing you'd recognize. Hey, it's Han Solo's dice in the mirror. Hey, it's whatever made Nurse Ratched mean to the patients in Cuckoo's
Plot
Nest.
twist,
I didn't
she's
watch the show.
lesbian in the 40s.
Oh, okay. Now she's a member of the LGBTQ community, so that's why her whole life is bad. It's like explanations, really wink at the audience, like point at it with a red flashing light explanations for things that I just don't understand how anyone could give a shit about. I
agree.
I like the stuff that bogs those things down to me as a viewer is the time when it's like, hey, it's the thing you like. Hey, look. And it's like, yeah, I would have caught it if you didn't circle it with a highlighter. You could have just had it happen instead of it being like, well, then that little boy wouldn't get a present this year. Well, what's wrong with Santa only bringing presents to the nice boys and girls? And then Mrs. Claus spiking the camera like Jim from The Office is like, I don't need it. I would have gotten it on my own. I'm not that stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's a lot of that stuff in this, which I think is fascinating from a movie that's 30 years, depending on when Reboot Mania like that started. I'm not sure of the exact time, 25 years, whatever. This movie does, it's like that stuff is somehow baked in the Hollywood formula of it to me, which is just like wild.
Well, that's apparently, according to the first paragraph on Wiki, that's like why they made the movie. They were like, they wanted to like answer questions kids had about Santa. And I was like, what kids? What sad like homeschool kids are you talking? Sorry, that was rude. I'm sorry. Like what sad lonely nerds, 6-year-old nerds were you talking to that were like, but I don't understand why Santa does that. Like no, who cared?
Can you please use events from Santa's life to explain why he does these things? Like, the motivational backstory is really important to me.
But, like, so what if Santa died and his afterlife is being grabbed by some elves and given eternal life?
Yes, that is that. There's, like I said, I'm really genuinely thrilled to have this discussion. I think this is going to be fun in the way One Magic Christmas is fun, but One Magic Christmas still holds up as like you have to see this movie. You are not prepared for the buck wild nature of this movie. Whereas this, I'm like, it's really boring. Don't waste your time. But I think this discussion will be enlightening.
Oh, I plan on watching. My boyfriend and I. He's gonna watch it for the first time. We're gonna watch it Christmas morning after we do our presents because I can't be around our parents this year. So we're going to pop 2 bottles of champagne and we're going to watch One Magic Christmas.
It's a hoot. I think, I don't know like when we would do this, but eventually I would like to do a live commentary for it. I think that would be fun. I don't know if that takes place as like an actual event with people sometime in the future, or we do it online as like a charity drive or something, but I've been stewing on this idea of like,
you mean?
No. I want to do like MST3K, like just talk like we did for on the Patreon for Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But you mean like in person, like quote unquote in person?
Well, it would just be like we would just sit on the stage or something, and we would do a live commentary or whatever. Yeah, I don't know that. Just I was watching the movie. I was like, God, this is I can't talk about this movie enough. It's so weird. But let me pitch you the $500 rewrite of this, which is like. All we're doing is adding some narration and slightly tweaking a couple of later scenes. This is the movie opens with Lithgow as the executive, but he's not a toy man, he's a movie maker. And the pitch is from Dudley Moore, hey, I'm an elf, I worked for the North Pole, I'm getting out of there, I can tell you the whole story of the real Santa Claus. And we can make a movie that tells like the real story of how Santa became Santa. I was there, I saw the whole thing. And he starts telling the story. We switch to the narrative you see for that 45 minutes up until Dudley Moore leaves. And then build in the second half where Dudley Moore is like, gallivanting about and doing all these things. It's like it's not Christmas 2, it's like Santa 2, right? Because he's like, I have the magic and I do it. And then the movie culminates with Santa like coming in wrestler style to save the day. Like, by God, that's Kris Kringle's music. He's coming to deliver the toys for all the good girls and boys. And then you have him like, Lithgow sees the error of his ways. He has like the meeting of Christmas business because
so does Lithgow then also, is he still a toy man in the version of the movie that they're pitching?
I don't know. Maybe I lost the thread a little bit there, but like maybe like you probably have to have it not be Dudley Moore wants to get like maybe I mean obviously this is not perfect. Maybe the conflict at the end part needs to be slightly different, right? But even if that doesn't work, which it doesn't clearly as I'm talking about it, but that's fine. Even if it's just narration.
You ran out of ink in that pen while you were signing your name.
Right. Well, because my idea was like, let me change it without changing anything, and then I realized it doesn't work. But even if you just slapped a narration over it of like Dudley Moore is telling this story, and then at one point it fades into Dudley Moore telling this story into John Lithgow's office after 40 minutes, and it like even if it's just that, right? You change nothing, forget my idea. It's like it's not a movie. It's the same story. Dudley Moore leaves the North Pole, is pitching this. He's talking to John Lithgow, and he's like, oh, how do I know you're real? Like, how do I know the story is true? He's like, well, I can tell you the whole story of Santa. And he's like telling us all this backstory. And then like maybe you have Lithgow interrupt him once or twice during the story to do something which the audience is feeling, which is like, can we get to the point already? Why are we in the 12th century? Like, what? Go faster. And then we get to the 80s more quickly, leading to the fade out of the backstory of Santa into the scenes in the end where it's like Dudley Moore explaining what he wants to do, and then he makes the magic lollipops and blah, 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 and we have the rest of this movie. That lets you cut 15 minutes out of the Santa 45-minute origin story movie.
I agree.
But I have a suspicion, and I can't prove this. I could not find it anywhere. This feels like two different scripts that were smooshed together to make this movie. That maybe it was a TV special and then something else, or it was a TV special that got added onto, or like a TV special that got glommed onto, or it was two distinct movies, one about Santa and one about the Dudley Moore thing that gets smooshed together, because it's genuinely a 45-minute movie about the origin story of Santa Claus that ends, and then it becomes a 45-minute movie,
an hour movie. This movie is an hour 45.
Yeah, so it's honestly, it might be closer to an hour of the Santa origin story and then the 45-minute movie. But it's bonkers. Like, nothing of note happens in the first 45 minutes except winks to the audience about stuff they know about Santa.
And also, like, if you're making this movie for children, why is it so boring?
Right.
Like, in the Santa Claus, with an E at the end, the clause in a contract. Right. It's whimsical and like and imaginative and magical, and they get to the toy shop and it feels like a kid in a candy store. When we see the workshop here, it feels like an industrial for like, this is why you should work for Santa Corps.
I disagree. I didn't feel that way watching it. I got the same sort of like, oh man, it looks like it's built out of wood, and that's kind of like whimsical and magical, and there's all these like the whole set design really reminded me of Killer Clowns, and it's sort of like homemade charminess.
Okay.
Which to me feels like the Elf Workshop. Like, they probably did build the workshop themselves. You know what I mean?
I didn't hate the workshop. I think it felt very boring, which maybe in 85 this isn't boring yet. Like, there haven't been that many interpretations of Santa's Workshop, but like in 2020 we've had 100,000. So like the set for this for Santa's Workshop looks like the Once Upon a Christmas Time parade in Disney World, which you can easily YouTube if you haven't seen it. It all has this like carved out of wood feel to it, but like it just didn't have the like whimsy to it, like intricate spirals or like weird or like things are made out of building blocks because it's cute.
I get what you're saying. Yep. It's not Tinker Toys, it's like wood.
Yeah, it felt more like, yeah, exactly.
I would say that most people at this time, and frankly even in the current time, have a lot of their Santa stuff shaped by those Rankin Bass specials. So
the claymation.
Mm-hmm. So that's probably like what the general public is looking at the time of this movie coming out.
That's true.
That's probably what people are thinking. But let's start talking about the plot, and we'll get to some more of this stuff and what have you as we go through. So we start with some creepy singing children.
God, it's worse than the children singing in Jaws: The Revenge. No, yeah, that's the Bahamas one, and at Christmas time. Yeah, God, it's bad. I think this movie wanted to be a musical. Like it feels very musical.
Yeah, I could see that. I love and hate simultaneously that it starts with just, we're in the middle of this action. We have no idea when or where we are.
Well, we have an idea of when, because they're all wearing like furs and like
okay, yeah,
like leather
that's
with
fair.
like the big wide stitching. It looks very Viking.
Right. So we see this man who is, in the story, a mortal man who has nearly magic powers, basically. He's able to deliver all these toys, and they make these jokes.
I don't think he's because it's just this village and the other village, it seems like.
But someone makes the comment of, how does he have time to do all this? And they go, well, he just seems to make it.
He's an old man. He's not working.
No, the implication is that he has like an actual job in the village, plus he makes all the toys for the children.
Because also he's like, late 60s probably.
Yeah, about that.
So he's I don't imagine he's in Viking times. He's like has a job.
Oh, I just get the impression, like even if you're right and I'm wrong, it's like a couple hundred kids, maybe. It's 100 kids in each village, say, or 200 kids in each village. That's a lot of wood carving to be doing.
I think it looks like he makes about 150 toys.
So, I mean, when you're carving wood by hand, say you take 2 days to carve each of those things out of wood. That's your whole year. And then you got to deliver them all. That's a big project. Like the mail delivery part of it is difficult. I think they're flirting with he's magic before he becomes Santa.
Because he just like rolls up in his sleigh with his wife and like opens the bag and like hands out his splinters to all the kids. And then he's like, I got to get to the other village on the other side of the forest. I got that it was just like these two villages because he lives near them. That's what I got.
Maybe.
I didn't get magic.
Maybe. The way they talk about him sort of reverentially of like, he just sort of seems to make time and he does so much, gave me a little bit of this man might be magic. But he's riding in the sleigh with the missus and he's like, oh, they love their Uncle Claus. And it's them like with a couple of reindeer clip-clopping their way through the snow.
Those poor live reindeer.
Yeah, it's
100%
really good reindeer acting, though.
Yeah, but 100% they were abused.
I hope not. You don't know that.
But like looking at the way that they made them walk and like how like tired they looked, like I don't think reindeer can act tired. Like I don't think, like you know what I mean.
I thought that they tranquilized them,
which I think falls under the abuse umbrella.
I guess.
Maybe like for actresses, giving an actress quaaludes so that she'll be like calm for her scene is abuse.
Agreed, but maybe it was cooler than that. And like Dudley Moore, John Lithgow, and the reindeers went out to the
they jingle all the way,
the stable, and they smoked a doobie.
Oh, not I was thinking drinking.
I'm fine with that too. Maybe they had a couple of beers. Anyway, I hope these reindeer were not tortured and abused. That would be really bad. But
Santa, his wife, and his two reindeer die, I think.
So I just watched this movie on Hulu, which I thought was going to be a little more exciting despite the premise. It's called Centigrade, and it says it's based on a true story, although I think that's Fargo style based on a true story, which is to say bullshit. About two people who get trapped in their car for multiple weeks, and it's about them being stuck. They're in like one of the Nordic countries where it snows like 10 feet.
Oh, so they're snowed in. I was like, they couldn't break a window or open
No,
a
they
door.
like they're it's really snowing bad, and we don't know, like they talk about this in the opening scene. They would wake up in the car, but it's the two of them. She's an author on the way to a book thing, and he's her husband traveling with her, and they pull over because it seems dangerous. They're having trouble seeing, and they wake up and the car is just covered and they can't get the doors open.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool.
I thought it was a neat premise. The movie is a bit of a dud, Centigrade, but this reminded me very much of it. Of that, they die. First of all, in the movie, it takes much longer for anything to happen, but in this one, they die instantly. It's like Santa and Mrs. Claus apparently have boots.
I think
that
it's
they
negative
filled with
100 degrees Celsius.
the other explanation that makes sense is all of their clothes are very wet underneath like a dry parka.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's the only other explanation I can think of. They went on a water ride, went in to warm up, and then Santa's like, "It's time to go deliver the toys." And then they left and froze to
He
death.
doesn't have a German accent in this movie. I appreciate it, but he
this
doesn't
Santa
have one.
feels that I feel this character in this movie should be German accented.
I agree. We get a really nice matte painting. Speaking of
Yeah,
clowns,
we do. There's some great matte paintings all over this.
And some great effect work. I mean, obviously it's the 80s, so you can see the haze around it all, but like the magic sparkles and all, like this movie has some charm to it and it's got some nice magic effects. It's just tedious.
Like I said, if you listen to the words that come out of my mouth about this movie, you'd be like, "Oh, you really liked it," and I really did not.
No.
But I liked almost everything in it.
I liked
didn't like the
aspects
movie.
of it.
I liked most of the performances. I liked the set design. I liked the effects. The music's pretty good. There's a lot of cool stuff in this movie, but man, is it a huge boring bummer.
Yeah, it's a big swing and a miss. Well, did you see who the first choice to direct was?
I didn't.
I'll give
Tim
you
Burton?
one guess. You'll never get it, but
was it Tim Burton?
no, it was John Carpenter.
What? I feel robbed. That is
But
insane.
he wanted Final Cut and he wanted to do the score, so they went in a different direction.
Oh my god. This is 2-3 years after The Thing, and they were like, you know who's good at directing cold pictures? John Carpenter.
Yeah, seems like a weird choice for your Santa Claus movie in 1985 based on his trajectory thus far.
I gotta figure out if he's ever talked about that. If we're gonna have to go dig in and see if I can find an article about that.
They also said who his first choice for Santa was, but I'm forgetting that now.
Kurt Russell.
No, I wish. Can you imagine if it was like the Christmas Chronicles would have so much more so much more, footing now.
Yeah, it'd be Jack Burton as Santa Claus, be a hoot. So they get resurrected. There's a quick resurrection of both Santa and the reindeer shortly after they die because the elves travel down to Earth and resurrect them.
Again, you wanted to make the movie to answer children's questions about how Santa Claus came to be, and you thought earnestly that the best explanation to give children was Santa and his wife died in the cold with their reindeer and got resurrected by magic. That's what you thought was the best.
This brings up the same sort of horror realization of One Magic Christmas, because in that movie, all of the angels are people that died and then get conscripted into toy making for all eternity. This man's job is difficult.
Toy-making?
Yeah, the elves in One Magic Christmas are former people.
I don't remember that. It's been a minute. You said said angels make toys, so I was like, yeah, angels are always dead people.
Yeah. No, sorry, you are correct. Thank you. But in this version of it, so Santa is basically conscripted into a forever job
because there was a prophecy.
But he is not only the guy who has to deliver the toys, which is a difficult job. He's also in charge of the business. Like, he has to make sure the factory runs. He has to negotiate the deals with the elves.
Foreman, CFO, and also
Chief delivery
driver.
man. Yeah.
It's a lot of jobs.
But that's a really dark version of the Santa mythos. Is he's been forced to do this for multiple centuries.
Yeah.
It's way less sad if it's a magical being who just sprouted into existence.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess because I know that the version of Santa Claus that we know today, that like the classic suit with the pants and the everything, was basically invented by Coca-Cola, I think, in the 40s?
The time frame is perhaps off, but the rest of that is correct. Yeah, it's basically Coke ads.
So, like, I think that visual could have worked for, like, show, like, I don't mind seeing Santa through the centuries if it's a quick 5-minute montage, but, like, you could show his outfit changing throughout. Like, in the 14th century, he had the long robe, because, like, that was the big Santa look for a while, that, like, Père Noël in France kind of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be really interesting. And I also think there is a fun Santa movie that may exist made somewhere else, but I've never seen it, where Santa has to... They touch on this a little bit in that Arthur Christmas animated one, but there's not been one that sort of has Santa swapping in outfits to match the cultural depiction of him and wherever he is.
Oh, that's
which
fun.
I think would be... Yeah, like a really interesting thing. They talk a little bit about it in the Arthur Christmas, where it's like they go to that movie has it where the elves do a lot of the delivery, and they have like, we're in Germany, and remember the gifts go in the shoes here, and they like, they're putting the gifts in the shoes, like acknowledging the cultural traditions around the world. Yeah, it is. But I think that could be a really interesting Santa movie where it's not just like American Santa and sometimes British Santa, but also what's Santa look like in Mexico or in the Caribbean. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. That kind of stuff could be interesting to me.
Well,
if you're gonna make
frankly,
a Santa
I
movie.
want my La Befana movie. Why has she not had a movie yet?
I mean, it will certainly happen in the next 6 years, given how
Starring
just
Scarlett
anything
Johansson.
anything that's an intellectual property is getting purchased and mined. But we get Dudley Moore introduced here, and he is the head elf in charge of something or other. Made me think of that time when for like 2 years we decided that Russell Brand was just going to be Dudley Moore, which is a fun thing for American cinema. It's like, oh, this guy's a little bit like Dudley Moore. Like, yeah, you're right, he's like Dudley Moore. Well, we're just going to make him do that. What? No. Like, there's a world in which Arthur makes more money and this movie got remade with Russell Brand. Absolutely, that's a thing. So the Clauses get introduced to their new world, and I don't know if you caught this, but the little group of elves who is giving Santa and Mrs. Claus the tour are kind of giving Mrs. Claus the eyes. Like,
well,
she's
one of them
a T-Bone's...
says like, "Oh, you're so young and beautiful."
Yes. They are. It's like they want to get Santa and Mrs. Claus here on a full-time basis. Also because there are no women elves.
I was like, yeah, look around. It's a Smurf situation.
Exactly. She's Smurfette, and she's getting as much elf action as she wants.
So
they have some cool forced perspective shots in this sequence as well, where we're like the elves are kind of scattered about to look different sizes, which I enjoyed. And this is when you see that workshop we were talking about, that it's all wood and looks toy-ish.
So I guess there was just no Santa before the 12th century?
That's basically what this movie says, yes.
And then also, the naughty or nice list didn't come about for a few centuries after that? Like,
right, it was like, at the beginning, everyone got a toy.
This movie made it seem, because I want to say those kids look Victorian. So those kids are like 1900s? No.
About there? 1800s
1890s,
maybe?
I should say.
Yeah.
So from the 12th century to like, we'll say 1880, just to get benefit of the doubt, every kid got a present. And then all of a sudden Santa was like, you know what? No.
The other thing that I love is they don't give that idea to Santa. They give it to Mrs. Claus. So she's the mean one.
Well, I mean, girl power.
But yeah, it's basically
Is that the plot to Christmas
kid...
Chronicles 2 that Mrs. Claus is secretly like the head in charge? I'm probably not going to watch it because it just looks unwatchable.
Yeah, it's like you made something that was harmlessly watchable. Is what I would call that first movie. I don't think it's cute. I think it's almost cute is my personal review of it. It does the things that audiences generally think are cute without the sort of charm required to get them all the way there. Okay. But it's saved because it's Kurt Russell is my personal take on that.
Honestly, just put more Goldie in the first one. And then you didn't have to make the second one. Because the first one's perfect for like between opening presents and like eating your breakfast, lunch, and having Christmas dinner. That like dead
perhaps.
zone.
Speaking of dead zones, the area between Goldie Hawn's hairline and her chin.
What does that mean?
Have you seen her face in the ads for that movie?
Oh,
it doesn't move.
Well, yeah. It's like Dolly's face in Christmas in the Square.
Sorry,
it
Goldie.
is a lot of plastic. Love her to death. She is a queen and a goddess, and
that's her whole brand, though. Like it's her whole. That's like her constantly doing surgery to herself is basically the Dolly Parton brand.
Yeah, I've also heard it rumored that Dolly Parton is like covered in tattoos from like the bra down.
I feel like she has talked about this in interviews that she is not covered in them, but that she has a bunch.
Yeah. Christmas in the Square is a fever dream, y'all.
Did you actually like it? Like, is it worth the time to watch?
So I enjoyed it. I would skip through a bunch of songs because there were just when you have that many songs in your musical, you're gonna have a few duds.
I actually thought the Forrest Whitaker one that they
Jingle
put
Jangle
out this
looks
year,
great.
Yeah, I thought it looked really cool, and the trailer made me really interested. And then I was like, "Why is this 2 hours long?" And found out it was a musical, and my interest went down about 45%.
Don't they dance in the trailer?
There is a musical number in the trailer, but there's a big difference between a Christmas movie having a musical number, which I think is honestly shockingly common throughout the genre, and there being, or like a big song portion of it, and the movie being an outright musical.
That's true. Yeah.
Even as an example, Jingle All the Way, certainly not a musical, but it has a huge musical or montage set to a musical number that's like almost the whole song.
That's a montage.
I'm not saying it's 1-to-1, but it's like it's not surprising to have a big music portion of your Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Elf has the big sing at the end.
It's enjoyable. It's diverse and it's fun, but like it is a fever dream because it's got so many great stars in it. The opening number is a bunch of like maybe 50 to 100 trained dancers doing a full choreographed number on a backlot town square. I love the backlot feel of this movie. As they're dancing, Christine Baranski is just walking through handing out eviction notices, being like singing about how you have to leave. Here's a check. Here's your eviction notice. And it ends with her fucking SUV pulling away, and it drives past, and it reveals a like radio flyer wagon with 3 puppies in it with bows on it, and there's an eviction notice pinned to the wagon. Like that's the movie you're watching.
Okay.
The pastor's a bad actor. I'll just say that. Hot take. He's terrible.
Oh,
the pastor in the movie cannot act his way out of a paper bag.
At this point, it's revealed that Santa and Mrs. Claus really wanted to have a kid, but couldn't. And then one of the elves' response is, well, you have all the children of the world now, which is not really the same thing.
So, like, I don't hate that concept. I don't like this execution, but I like the idea that, like, Santa, they wanted to have a kid, and instead of having a child, I would rather it be, I guess, again, the forced servitude. I would rather it be like, well, we can't have children, so, or the origin story should have just been, we can't have children, we're going to provide for the kids that are needy, and then from there it just blossomed in more and more and more, and like, now we provide for all the children of the world.
You really only need to make a small tweak to make it less bleak, where he's been conscripted into this slavery for all eternity, and that's, they die, and instead of them just whisking them to the North Pole, you have this Burgess Meredith with the giant beard character come forward carrying the Santa suit. We'll get there because it's momentarily anyway. But you have him approach the two of them and say, like, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You've died. You were someone we had our eye on upstairs watching, at the North Pole, watching what was happening on down the rest of the planet.
I thought you meant heaven.
No, I think that was where my brain went, but that's.
I would rather it be an angel, like a clearance, and then they're like, is there anything, like, any last request before you go to heaven? And Santa's like, well, I would like to provide for children. And they were like, well, I guess we can finagle this one.
So that's it. That is one way to do it, but they keep talking about this prophecy. So you could have Burgess Meredith walk out and say, our prophecy is of a man who travels the world giving toys to all the children in it. You seem like a perfect person to do this job, but we have to warn you, this is a lifetime choice. And you aren't real. It's eternity.
Prophecies aren't really known for being casual. Like, they're not known for having anytime there's a prophecy in something, it's not like, do you want this prophecy to be about you? This is your
I would argue that most prophecy only works that way because the people in the narratives around the prophecy are trying to force a person into it. The prophecy in Harry Potter equally applies to both. Yeah, and that's two different people that you could apply the rules to. So I think a prophecy is as much bullshit as you want to assign to it. It's like astrology. Like, some people just like to look at it, but it's written vague and generically that anyone can get something from it.
Well, yeah, I mean, prophecies in general they're a fiction thing, but
yeah,
they're normally like, this is ascribed to one person. I super don't need there to be a prophecy around Santa Claus.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, if you're going to go prophecy, it could make him be an active choice.
Like
the contract?
That's why it's called the Santa Claus.
Yes, I'm aware. I thank you for explaining a 25-year-old joke to me as if I don't understand it.
So just do a contract.
Meanwhile, Dudley Moore introduces Santa to the reindeer and shows him around what is the word? The barn? The stable? I keep wanting to come up with a word. Okay. I was yelling at my brain, not you. I was like, I can't come up with this word.
That's
the
where
reindeer live in a house.
So.
Yeah. So the barn / stable is also where Dudley Moore sleeps and also where Dudley Moore invents his inventions, which are numerous.
But also, I don't understand why they were like, you know what? We have 6 reindeer. Santa died with 2 reindeer to make 8. Why? Why? You know what you could have done? Santa has 1 reindeer and he calls him Rudolph. Not a red nose, but just do that. So that way there's 8 at the North Pole already.
Sure. Yeah. Fine.
I also don't get why in the end 2 got the flu.
Wait, what?
At the end of the movie, they're like, 2 reindeer have the flu, so you'll have to fly with 6. And I was like, is this a budget thing? What are we doing?
So I actually thought that was kind of funny because I was recently I had Xbox Game Pass, which is kind of like Netflix for Xbox.
I have the PlayStation version.
Okay, so you can download games and play them and sort of try them out and then get rid of them. And there was this Lego-ish, it's not licensed by Lego, but it's very Lego adjacent where you build vehicles and drive or race them or whatever. Oh, fun. And I kept adding things onto things, and then I would make them too big to do the dumb stuff I was doing, and they would just sort of explode, which was satisfying to me as a player.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that game watching this, where it was like, oh yeah, you got too many engines on there. If you have 6 engines instead of 8, you can do the super duper looper. You got too much power, bud. You gotta back off the power to weight ratio. So I was like, this perfectly jives based on my very extremely niche experience.
Yeah, no.
But this is the part where it really starts to drag because they're slowly and laboriously explaining to Santa what his job is.
Right. Even though he's the first.
Right. They're just telling him the prophecy. But this is the worst, for me personally as an audience member, the worst scenario to be in is I know something the main character doesn't, and it's taking them forever to figure it out or learn it. It's torturous. I hate that where, you know who the killer is and it seems you had a good inkling and then you get the definitive proof and then the main character doesn't know. And so they're just sort of spinning their wheels and you're like, just figure it out.
Well, you know what movie did this well? Noelle.
Yeah, I would say so.
The first 10 minutes of that movie is Noelle putting Bill Hader through training to become Santa, which, like, we all know what Santa does, but, like,
right.
It's concise, it's 10 minutes, and it shows everything you need to know. This is 45 minutes of that. Also,
right. I mean, like I said, honestly,
conditions are terrible. They sleep in shifts.
The elf can...
They rotate. They're like each of their beds, because it looks like Snow White, where all the beds have names on them. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute, whatever. But then there's a scene where like they all get up, and then as they walk past their bed, they flip it's a triangle sign, and they flip it so that the next elf can get in bed. So they sleep in shifts. They only get sunlight and outside weather once a year. Like this is like Jeff Bezos' wet dream.
The sound you hear in the background is every factory owner in America masturbating.
Yeah.
They're just furiously jacking it.
Yeah. Like I said, Jeff Bezos' wet dream.
Yeah, Henry Ford. And the crazy thing is, throughout history, these megalomaniac owners of things have tried to make these things over and over and over again. This is the factory worker's dream scenario, and it has been basically made in this fashion in the world multiple times.
And failed, right?
Yeah, eventually, but for a while, this is how people are living. But yeah, this existence seems the worst type of prison sentence. That you can never see the outside. You're forced to work 16 hours a day. Your only break is sleeping. I guess maybe they don't work 16 hours.
Well, we don't know what the elves' deal is. Like, are they forced into this?
Right.
Santa is, but we don't know about them.
We get a long bit of, oh, Santa doesn't look good in green. What color should the suit be? Oh, the suit should be red. Yes, I think red would look marvelous on Santa. And it's like, how many times can we underline this thing?
I mean, I thought it was cute.
Get it?
I thought it was cute, but I didn't think it was cute that the one gay elf was the sewing elf.
I mean, that was the least surprising thing in the world to me.
But like, I was like, really? That's the route we're gonna go? Because also, like, all these elves, and that's the gay one. There's one.
The suit color joke didn't bother me the first time. It bothered me like the sixth time that somebody commented on the red being the right choice. It was like, Dudley Moore says red, Mrs. Claus says red. That should be the end of the scene. We don't need each individual elf to react to red as a good idea for Santa's suit and how it will make his cheeks pop. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, yes, we get it. Yes, we got it. I swear the children in the audience will get that Santa's suit is supposed to be red. I swear.
You're right. I did like that his suit, the fur piping on his suit isn't pristine white. It's like, it probably was real animals, but like how like real animal fur has variations and like has some dark spots in it, and it looks organic, and that's what his is. It's very white. It's white with gray tinge and then like black spots, and it's really cute.
I think all of the costumes are cool. Like I think the elf costumes read like elves to me. I don't get why
so many polka dots. The polka dots read clown to me, not elf.
Mr. and Mrs. Claus in polka dots is a weird choice. I will give you that. But I think most of the outfits that the Clauses wear and the elf costumes are cool.
Well, I think that's what I mean. The elves also are in a lot of polka dots.
That's fair. I don't remember Dudley Moore in polka dots, though.
He might not have been, but a lot of them. And I was like,
okay.
Polka dots, like, because it's like yellow and orange polka dot, which always will read circus clown to me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. At this point, we're introduced to this conveyor belt manufacturing thing that it looks like it turns poop or puke into gold. I can't quite understand what they're creating.
It turns something into magic dust that makes reindeer fly.
But is it a food?
You are asking me, and the only knowledge I have is what the movie provided.
I mean, it just looks like poop or puke, right? It's just loose, wet food-like chewed particle things.
I don't remember that. I remember it being like, it looked mossy, Or is that the end product?
The end product is sort of mossy and sparkly gold. The end product sort of looks like if you had a big sort of malleable mound of fool's gold. Pyrite?
Yeah,
I
pyrite.
think it's called. Yeah. If you had a big piece of pyrite the size of, say,
I remember it
tortilla.
being like, it looked like shreddy moss you might feed to an animal covered in gold glitter.
Maybe. It looked malleable to me, but moss would be malleable too. So that's just as good a guess as any. I also really like, at this point, we see that the workshop has a dome at the top, like a football stadium that could be opened or closed.
The one time a year that they get to see the outside world.
Have you ever seen the stadium in Atlanta, the fairly recent football stadium? They call it...
Is that the one that Lady Gaga did the halftime show at? Where she didn't actually jump down from the top, but like that's what the video was?
I'm not sure. The Deadspin called this stadium Megatron's butthole because it looks like a Transformers derriere.
Oh wow, yeah, no, that's an aperture butthole.
It's something, all right.
Oh boy.
So this is Santa's first run.
The movie decided, like, I want to know, like, if you're gonna bother explaining everything, explain what makes the reindeer fly instead of this, like, Season's Greetings is here. What the fuck is Season's Greetings? That's a greeting. Last I checked. That's something you say to people.
They do explain how the reindeer fly, and it's that they manufacture this magic dust through some sort of means.
I want to know what the magic dust is.
Oh, you want the elf team harvesting this from the tundra?
Yeah, or like, oh, we grow it in this field is, the...
Oh, they grow it all right.
Yeah, wink, wink.
Wink, 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 wink.
I guess I was in Maleficent too. But like, oh, this is the field where like, and then just show like a square patch of like golden flowers and add your sparkles to it. That's all I need.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, if they take the time to explain everything else, why not that?
Yeah, I was like, hey, I didn't need to know that, like, that's why Santa's suit is red. But like, why do reindeer fly? Gets real hand waved.
So this is the first time that Santa is ever going to do the gift delivery, and he goes out for his run. And I kept thinking this whole time, children and adults would be very concerned, right? If
I was just thinking that. I was like, oh yeah, the first time people will be like, where did these come from? Someone broke into our home.
He has to be the origin of all Santa myth. So why is it like, and the other part is like, why does it become totally different in every country as to what's happening right now? And why do all the myths differ so widely? If truly it was Santa won, like eventually there was the first Christmas that Santa participated in, he flew all over the world and did all the gift giving. How does the myth fracture so much? Or is that supposed to be the point of the movie, the fracturing of myth and the way storytelling has changed culturally and stuff? And if so, why is it not more there?
I would love this if this is going to get remade, which it shouldn't. But if it did, I would want it to be a Netflix series where it could be like the first episode is like how it really happened. And then after every episode after that can be like one child saw something in their country and like spread that rumor. So like one girl was like, it was a witch on a broom. And they were like, shut up, eat your spaghetti. And then that's how La Befana starts. Although La Befana has a I like her story. It's kind of clever. She's the Italian Santa Claus, by the way. I realize
I was just gonna say, I feel like you knowledge. I feel like La Befana is pretty niche. You might need to explain to people who that is.
La Befana is the Italian version of Santa Claus. She is a witch. The three wise men were going to Jesus' birth, and they stopped by her house, and they were like, "Can you help us get somewhere?" And she was like, "Fuck off, weirdos," and shut the door in their face. And then I think I don't remember if like an angel told her something. Something was like, "Hey, you fucked up. They're going to see baby Jesus." So she got on her broomstick and was like flew out into the night to try and like find him. And so that's the story. Is that
in the La Befana? Wasn't Santa visited La Befana?
No, the three wise men.
Okay, I lost the three wise men, and you saying that, and I'm like, wait, Santa and Jesus? Wait,
no, the three wise men were visiting baby Jesus at his birth, and they needed directions to Bethlehem, and she said no, and then I think a spirit, an angel, something that was like, hey, Jesus is real. That was real. You should fix this. So she flew out into the night to try and find the 3 wise men and baby Jesus. And in doing so, discovered all the other children of the world and just gave them presents to reward them.
I see. Well, in this one, we play some really sad
Which makes
music
way
as
more
Santa's
sense
about
than
to
anything we
launch.
get in this stupid movie.
I'm just perplexed by the downbeat nature of this song as Santa's gearing up. Like, I thought this would be the happy go fun time hour, and instead it's pretty somber.
Yeah, frankly, what I want is I want the Eye of the Tiger with Santa, like, doing, like, he has a present and he squats to put it under the tree. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want, like,
Yeah,
quote unquote
absolutely.
workouts,
It should
but,
be
like,
fun. You mean fun. What you're saying
Yeah.
is it should be fun to watch?
He's doing,
yes.
arm curls, but it's putting cookies in his mouth.
Yeah, I
doing
think all of the
bicep
things you're
curls.
describing are in the Santa Claus BT dubs.
That might be.
I think
actually
you're
haven't
just
seen it in a
describing
very long time.
the cookie curl. 100% is in a movie that I have watched. I guarantee.
Well, I
that
remember
being
that
real.
in the Santa Claus, there's a CD, a cookie dispenser in the.
Yes.
I remember that
Yes.
joke and like thinking that was the craziest joke I've ever seen as a child.
Could you imagine a cookie
Right?
dispenser? And also, why does Santa need a cookie dispenser given that everyone is already putting cookies out for him? It seems a little bit ridiculous.
There's also a hot cocoa Keurig in his.
See,
like-
the hot cocoa I get. You got to fuel up and hydrate.
Yeah.
That's that. I sometimes you
Although
need
if I'm hydrating, like if I'm like
With a couple-
I'm just
a couple
imagining
warm
like
milk?
doing a hard workout, which can't imagine that me. But like be like, oh, I'm done working out. I need some electrolytes in the form of a hot cocoa.
believe it or not, chocolate milk is actually a pretty good post-workout.
Chocolate milk is not hot cocoa. You can chug
Well,
chocolate
it's-
milk.
it's similar. That's all. At this point, our old pal Mickey from Rocky, Burgess Meredith, pops up with this
Or the penguin.
long beard.
The
Yes,
original
the
penguin.
The original penguin. This really long beard that sort of reminds me of old kung fu movies. The sort of kung fu master stroking the long beard.
Because is it Kill Bill where
Yes.
she goes to the guy and he like strokes it and then throws it over his shoulder?
Yes.
But like they're carrying his beard like it's a wedding train.
Yes.
And I was like, who is this man who's going to have 8 lines of dialogue and then Uber out of the movie?
There were so many people that they tried to get for this part. I'm going to pull it up here momentarily, but it is a wild list. The role of the ancient elf was written with James Cagney in mind, but Cagney was weak and unable to perform it.
AKA,
Fred
he
Astaire
didn't
would-
want to do it.
He was old at that time. He died in 86. So he could have legitimately been unable to do it.
So for Fred
But wait,
Astaire,
wait.
this movie was supposed to be in 1978 with Fred Astaire directing it.
Oh, interesting. Well, they tried to get Fred Astaire to do the part, and then that didn't work. And eventually Dudley Moore's like,
Oh,
I don't
no,
know,
sorry,
I'm friends
Gene
with
Kelly.
Burgess Meredith.
It was supposed to be in the late 70s with Gene Kelly directing, and they wanted Fred Astaire to do that role.
Oh, okay. I'm very fascinated by the Gene Kelly version of this movie. That's probably much more interesting.
He probably would have been like, hey, step 1, cut out all this heavy shit.
Yeah.
Lighten the
Well, it's-
load.
You just need to not have an hour of nothing. It's just the slowest start
It
to a
is
movie I can imagine.
Such a dreck.
So Mickey gives a really big speech about how you're the chosen one. It's very Jesus-y, sort of like
It's
the
weird.
carpentry thing. You were a craftsman and we needed a craftsman. And it's like, wow,
Why?
this is super Jesus-y. Yeah.
Also, so this brings up my question now. So the elves existed and were like spoken of as like legends. The Vendicum,
Yep.
I think they called them.
Yeah.
Because it almost sounded like Wendigo. And they were like, we're so excited you're finally here. You're finally dead. And they show him the warehouse full of toys. When do you think they finished those?
It's a great question.
Like, do you think they've just truly been like, they've been done for centuries and they've just been like staring at this old man in through a magic snow globe being like, die, 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 die.
Maybe they were building the warehouse and stuff. Like the production facility got manufactured while they waited for a Santa to materialize. Because you do have to do all the startup.
Well,
right?
yeah, but
like,
that is a warehouse full of toys. So but
Right.
how long have they been waiting done? Because they definitely are. They've been done a while.
The other foolish thing there is, as somebody who's been through many a job where a new boss comes in, new boss always wants to shake things up and sort of make things in their own image. So you're doing a lot of work assuming in this new Santa person's
I want
not going
that
to come
version
in.
of this movie now, where John Lithgow comes in and he's like,
These rocking horses are too big! Smaller! That wouldn't be the thing, though, because John Lithgow is like
Progresso
6'6"
soup.
or whatever.
I cannot
What are
believe
you
he's
thinking?
the spokesman of Progresso fucking soup.
Hey, man, those checks cash just like every other
They
one.
do, but it's so... The first time I heard it, I was like, is that John Lithgow screaming? Literally screaming about soup?
The crazy thing is, every commercial now, and I don't see as many as I used to because I don't have any subscription services with ads, really, except for this podcast. The crazy thing is how every ad now is a famous person. Jason Bateman does like 62 commercials, and like every time an ad comes on, I'm like, is that this person? Is that person? It's buck wild. John Lithgow was just there first.
There was a period where KFC had a new Colonel every month. And like,
But
that
I don't
was
even
their
talk about
shtick.
that. Putting the famous person in your commercial so people see their face and are like, oh, Jason Bateman likes Pizza Hut or John Lithgow likes Progresso soup. That I get. Using their voice without acknowledging it's them is mystifying to me.
Well,
There
like, what do
has
you
to be-
want? Do you want a Patricia Heaton moment where he's like, "I'm John Lithgow, enjoy Progresso soup"?
What I'm saying is, why are you paying the Lithgow Heaton bump instead of paying like Derek, the voiceover guy with his own personal website to do the voice? Like, it seems like you're spending all this money you don't have to.
Well, I think
get the
I think
bump.
Lithgow for sure has a voice, an identifiable voice, but I don't know if a lot of stars do.
I agree with that. That's what I'm saying.
Samuel
You're making
Jackson.
a point. Right, but they're paying Jason Bateman, who I think is a fine actor, but doesn't have a distinctive voice unless
No.
you're a loony like me.
I feel like he was just in something, and now I'm blanking.
He was on that HBO show, the adaptation of the Stephen King book.
I didn't see it. No, blanking. I'll think of it later.
Anyway, Santa wants to know how he can deliver all these toys from a logistical standpoint, and they're like, time moves with you.
I'm like,
It
what
will
does that
never be
mean?
dark. It will be nighttime until your task is done. I think that's a good, concise way of like, this is just how it works. You don't like the to get into the actual explanation of how that magic functions is a little too in the weeds for me. So I was
but,
fine
like, later.
with.
So later, they're like in a montage, because they jump through centuries in a montage. There's a visual of an hourglass as Santa goes through Christmas Eve.
Right.
What I think would have been a great set piece would have been a giant hourglass. And then they're like, "Are you ready, Santa?" And he like gets in the sleigh and they turn it sideways so that all time stops.
That would be cool.
Although then I guess
It would
kids
be a cool explanation.
then I guess kids can't see, like the kids can't see Santa, the little Oliver kid.
Right. Anyway, so we get this montage of gifts being delivered and played with, and it's kind of creepy. It's sort of kids on a black screen holding up, a doll or a pony horse.
It's very.
thing.
It feels like a commercial from the 90s.
Yeah, it has definitely that vibe.
And then they decide that, you know what? In every version of the Santa mythos, you mail a letter to Santa Claus. In our version, if you leave your letter on a table for too long, it just disappears and goes to Santa's workshop. What?
Yeah. Is there a series of elves whose job is just to keep an eye out for it or something? They like fizzle in and take it and then leave?
I don't know. It's just so... I was like, why would you do it that way? It should be... I mean, if you want to say it disappears once it goes in the mailbox, sure, I'm fine with that. But like... It's literally on someone's desk, and then it just glitters away.
We also do that thing where we have a montage, we do one scene and we go right back to the montage, which is always really silly to me. But this is the part where Mrs. Claus says he shouldn't bring toys to bad kids. And Santa's like, well, what if people say that? And she's like, it would be cool if they did. I'm trying to be the marketing head of this company. Why don't you let me do my fucking job?
Yeah, she's the head of social media. But, like, it seems so bizarre that was never, like...
Right.
That just wasn't a thing in the beginning of Santa's origins?
Yeah, I wanted the scene where a kid is like twisting the heads off parakeets and then turns around and Santa's like, ho, 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 good job, Johnny, Merry Christmas.
Well, I mean, the Victorian kid is torturing that cat.
Oh, he certainly is. He's a cat torturer.
And
I have him down as cat killer boy in my notes.
He's going to become Jack the Ripper because this is 1890s.
Yeah, for sure. And then we cut, so we have that scene, then we cut back to the toy montage, and there's a little boy playing with an abacus. An abacus is not a toy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that is not a toy.
That is an adding machine. It'd be the equivalent of a kid being given a calculator for a present as a child. Then we cut away from the montage again, and we're doing 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, and Santa gets all riled up about the fat joke, which I think is kind of great.
Well, I liked it. I thought it was cute that it was like, oh, come here, Mrs. Claus, you got to hear this. They wrote a poem about me. I was like, oh, that's kind of cute that, like, this is the first time anyone's hearing this, whatever. But
Yeah.
We need a Santa dieting joke.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. They cut from Santa hearing this and being sad to just sadly eating a single stalk of celery.
It looks like fennel. It looks like he has 2 pieces of fennel, 2 carrot sticks, fennel, and an olive on a plate.
And they're arranged at 12, 3, 6, and 9, and then the olive in the center. It's a very odd choice.
Also, the toys have a stamp that says elf made on them.
Right. Which is like fine when you're doing the wooden toys, but then what happens when we get into the iPad game?
The back has the engraving.
Oh, it's made by
Well,
elves.
also, I guess, I mean, that would bring up the question of, like, technically that is an Apple product. So if it's elf made, it's a knockoff.
Counterfeit.
It's a counterfeit product.
Yeah, it's true. Santa is
so instead of an apple on the back with the bite, it's a Christmas ornament. It's the round ball with the hook.
And same with the PS5s and Xbox, whatever the new thing's called that is making their way around the country right now.
Xbox next one. The next box.
I mean, I'm an Xbox loyalist in terms of consoles, and I'm not 100% sure of the answers. That says
just
a lot,
like
I guess,
PlayStation is just numbers.
Yeah, it's genius.
Like, what's the next number? 5.
Yeah.
Xbox was like,
which one is the most current? Let me just look at the highest number in the series. Done.
Well, what annoyed me was that Xbox happened, and then Xbox 360 happened, and so I would refer to the original as, I was like, oh, Xbox One. I would call it that because it didn't have a number. And to, like, denote that I was like, yeah, I had the Xbox One, like, when it first came out. The controllers were the size of ham hocks. And then they were like, the next Xbox is the Xbox One. And I was like, what? No, it's not.
That was the Xbox Zero, you see.
Apparently.
This is where we see the filling up of the hourglass to sort of take us through the time that's passing. And I was flabbergasted. It's like, when are we getting to the part with John Lithgow as a go-go 80s business maniac? Because that's in this
any
movie.
kind of conflict?
Right.
Anything at all.
I watched this on the Roku channel, which does have commercials, and there's like maybe 6 or 8 ad breaks throughout the movie, which honestly...
I watched on my laptop, and so it cut out of them all.
Oh, the ad blocker worked. I was watching on the TV, but it was nice because then I was just like flipping to other things on my laptop while the movie was on a commercial break, which was I'd like mute it and then keep checking. The other thing I thought was
was it a Progresso soup ad?
Ads? No, I wish, but it would be this Walmart ad that was enjoy your movie, happy holidays, as if like, oh, we're so cool, we're like, we bought an ad spot, but we're not going to take up too much of your time. And then there would be 2 consecutive different Walmart commercials afterwards. So it was like, oh no, you just bought a whole bunch of ads. It doesn't make me feel better. It's not like, we're so cool, we're not even going to like waste your time. I'm just going to let you get back to the movie. Just kidding, here's a minute straight of our bullshit.
Yeah, I hate that.
But anyway, so it's like we're just slowly grinding our way through the centuries to get to the 1980s. And I'm screaming like, just get to the point.
Yeah, I don't get why we needed that.
It's like a full novella of the origin of Santa Claus, and
it's a boring novella.
Yes, exactly. I think of it the way I think of like non-PC people who aren't known for food writing a cookbook, I've never read them, and this is just a blanket statement, but when it's like, I don't know, some like fitness person or some just like anybody who just writes a cookbook, what I imagine those cookbooks to be like are just like dry recitations of lists of things to put together into a pot. So at this point, Dudley Moore invents a toy machine. And of course, the machine immediately goes haywire, as it does. And then Santa meets a kid who we have already met, Oliver, who's
Joe. No, I call him Oliver because he's like a street urchin looking.
He is a street
He like has the fingerless gloves, and he's like, he's more Newsies than Oliver, I guess, because he's like, I don't need nothing, Santa.
Yeah, he's the emperor of these streets.
Yeah, he is the king of New York. But
Santa gives this kid a ride, which is just insane.
Well, he doesn't have any toys for him.
But why?
Because the kid. So that's this movie's mythos, is that like if you don't write a letter to Santa Claus, he's like, why did those kids get presents?
So it's...
And Santa goes, they wrote letters.
So it's the John Denver Christmas movie situation.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that one. But yeah. So like this poor homeless kid doesn't have food to eat, is supposed to find a paper and a pen to write a letter to Santa Claus.
Well, this is akin to the speech that we got earlier that explained that Santa was Jesus, because if in many religions, if you don't get baptized and you don't know that you're supposed to be getting baptized, you still go to purgatory or hell. So maybe that's just part of it. They're just like the real deep religious leanings of all this mythos.
That's true, maybe. We also get some gross McDonald's chewing sounds. Like the kid.
Yeah.
So this movie had promo with Coke, obviously, because it's Santa Claus.
Right.
McDonald's and PBR. Which is why we get very aggressive shots of those in this movie.
Yeah. The PBR I thought was funny.
It was a weird choice.
Yeah.
Because, well, there's a bottle of liquor on the
beer.
table, and I was like, oh, they're gonna have like a snifter of brandy or whatever. And then he cracks open a PBR, and I was like,
Santa cracking a PBR is like really
no, it's not
a hoot.
Santa, it's John Lithgow.
Oh, yeah, Lithgow, sorry, yes. But Santa cracking a PBR would be a hoot.
I have a feeling, I mean, I don't know who owns, I don't think anyone owns the copyright to Santa, I guess. But I can't imagine that like you're allowed to show actual Santa just like cracking open a cold one.
I wonder what
crisp, refreshing Coca-Cola.
An ice cold, delicious Coca-Cola. Santa tries to do the super duper looper, which we set up for conflict later in the movie, which is a loop-de-loop with the reindeer, which seems bad all around.
It's
given
bad
that
all
nothing in
around.
the
Also,
sleigh is
doesn't
attached.
when it comes up later as like the one thing that can save the day, I'm like, why? This is just style points.
Right. Honestly, this whole sequence reminds me of the Spider-Man games where you were swinging around the roofs or swinging between the buildings in New York. He's like zipping all around green screen. It's pretty good looking green screen, especially for 1985.
It's cute.
He lets the kid drive, and then we cut to the toys.
We forgot earlier, the rich girl, Cornelia, had given the homeless kid food, a plate of food, and a can of Coke. That she like very clearly, like when she put it down in frame, it's like, this is the label. And then he picks it up, but he picks it up backward. Like he reaches around it so that he also doesn't obscure the Coke label.
There is never a moment where the Coke is not visible in the can. She even goes so far as she like sort of places it down and then gives it like a quarter twist to make sure it's in frame
she
right.
like store managers when she's like, turn this. I'm half
Line up
surprised
all
it's
the
not New
labels.
Coke.
Yeah, this would be the right time frame for that. Maybe she didn't think this kid needed to count his calories, given that he doesn't have a lot coming his way.
Well, was New Coke a low calorie thing? I thought New Coke was.
Maybe
just
it wasn't. No, you're right. It wasn't.
Because Diet Coke was originally 1 calorie or 5 calories, which is always a weird thing to me.
I actually was recently reading a conspiracy theory, which was that they used New Coke to cover the fact that they were switching from sugar to high fructose corn syrup in regular Coke, which does taste noticeably different to me. And people were so happy to have the old thing back, even slightly different, that they just like didn't give a shit.
Oh, so they cranked out the theory is that they just cranked out some like random shitty formula, and then they're like, we'll bring it back, and they brought back something different.
They basically, somebody ran the numbers and they were like, the hit we'll take for this and then regain for bringing back the old product is way better than what will happen if we just switch this and don't bring it back. And we won't bring it back because it's too expensive to keep using real sugar, except for like very special occasions.
That's crazy to me that corn syrup is cheaper than sugar. That is
way cheaper.
That is so crazy.
Way cheaper. Orders of magnitude cheaper. Yeah. but you can get Coke with sugar in it around the certain Jewish holidays. The caps are different.
Yeah, they
And so
have
I
the
used
kosher
to-
symbol on them.
I used to occasionally buy a bottle of that because I don't drink a lot of regular. I don't hardly drink soda, period, anymore. But drinking a regular soda was something I hardly ever did growing up, even. But huge taste difference to me between a sugar Coke and a non-sugar Coke. It's like every once in a while I'd splurge
I never
on that as a
drink
treat.
I never drink regular soda. Like
I'm
almost
saying
never.
like once every 5 years or so, like a real Coke, like a Mexican Coke with sugar in it or something is something I'm like, yeah, what the hell? I'll have something sweet.
Huh. Well, I'm just like I wouldn't have any frame of reference for like this tastes better than regular.
If I gave you two of them side by side, you would instantly know that one was worse, and that would be the corn syrup one. I would be shocked if you couldn't tell the difference. It's pretty noticeable. Anyway, the toys all start falling apart, the ones that came out of the machine. And this sequence is actually really a hoot to me because it's like kids are they're on sort of like scoochy bikes. What are they called? Like bikes without pedals?
It's like it's sort of like those weird train things, you know, when you're on train tracks and you pump up and down, but you're going forward and back.
They're all sorts of like kid toy things. And then so like the wheels fall off and the kid falls over and the kid's crying, and then another kid is pulling a wagon and the wagon's wheels fall off and the kid's
No, the
like,
handle
oh,
comes
no.
off. He's
that's what
going
it is.
and the handle comes off, so he keeps going and he turns around and be like, my wagon or whatever, and a bus just comes flying around the corner and crushes this wagon in front of this kid who like points at it as like, my wagon or whatever.
It's like Tom Hanks with Wilson and Castaway, like
Yes,
screaming.
very much that.
But they show you this thing get turned to splinters. It gets crushed really aggressively. It's a hoot.
So they're like,
So I had never seen this before. I thought this was going to lead to Lithgow's, because even watching the trailer, I wasn't sure what happened.
I didn't watch the
Lithgow.
trailer.
And I was like, oh, is Lithgow gonna sue Santa? Is that what this leads to? He's like a lawyer, and it's
Oh.
like, your faulty toys are hurting our children, which I think is interesting. Like a sort of Miracle on 34th Street angle of, he has to
Yeah.
prove he's real. But no, it's not that.
oh, the homeless kid also didn't know the names of Santa's reindeer. He was like, what are these? And he's like, my reindeer. He's like, no, but what are the names? I'm like, you don't, it's 1985 and you've never once heard any of Santa's reindeer?
I mean, the kid who doesn't know he has to write a letter to Santa not knowing the name of the reindeer feels very connected to me.
Maybe.
So this leads to the movie just doing the sketch from Saturday Night Live about dangerous toys, but it's John Lithgow and it's in a courtroom instead of being on a fake talk
also
show.
you missed Cornelia slaps a girl in ballet class.
Oh, that's right.
Because
Yes.
Joe, for some reason, I guess we don't see it, but Joe must have been talking about how he's friends with Santa. So some kids beat him up in an alley, a dirty alley.
Yes. It's Martha Wayne, the Martha Wayne Memorial Alley, actually, I think is what it is.
A crime alley. It's that song. What's that song? We'll beat you up if we don't hand it over.
Oh yeah, the Father Christmas.
Father
by the Kinks.
Christmas, give us some money. It's that song. He
Yeah.
lives in that song. But then you,
I would like it better if it was actually scored to that, like the bit in Shaun of the Dead. It's called.
I want that movie
to,
now. Just turn that song into a movie. Forget the Christmas shoes. That's stupid shit. Give me Father Christmas, give us some money.
I just want them beating up this kid in time to the song, like that scene in Shaun of the Dead where they put on Mr. Fahrenheit. What's the Queen song, Mr. Fahrenheit? Don't Stop Me Now. And they're all taking
Don't Stop Me Now.
turns. Yeah, and they're all taking turns of hitting the zombie with a pool cue in time to the music, but it's, the Father Christmas Kink song, and they're just like wailing on this kid.
But then we cut to Cornelia, the rich girl in ballet class, because we have to punch it down that, like, hey, these kids are different.
I would like it better if she was doing dressage classes just to make it even more ridiculous.
Oh my god! And then she makes her horse like kick mud at the girls. Into that.
Exactly.
But I guess in
yes.
New York City, where are you doing dressage?
Well, upstate New York, maybe. He takes a train out to the boonies.
But she's in ballet class, and so apparently this girl, although maybe I don't know if she's an extra or she's one of the girls, like a professional wrestler, is one of the girls. I don't remember her name, but she's on the wiki because apparently she wrote about it in her book. That she was like, yeah, when I was younger, I did this movie.
Wait, an actual professor? You're not making a joke. You're saying an
actual professional wrestler. If you go to the wiki page, scroll to the bottom of the cast, and it says so and so is bratty girl in ballet class. She might not be WWE, but she's a professional wrestler.
No, yeah, she is a retired wrestler now, but I'm vaguely aware of who this person is. Not, I never watched the league that she competed in. Actually, she did compete in the one I watched when I was a kid, but I don't remember. Anyway, okay, that's
so
neat.
they're like my father says Santa's a loser who's a cheapskate and blah blah blah, and Cornelia just slaps this girl.
Really cranks her.
I love it.
It's really beautiful, yeah. But then we cut to the scene I alluded to earlier. It is just straight up the Consumer Report sketch.
Kids return the toys somehow to Santa.
Oh, right. And they're like, there hasn't been a return in centuries or
and
something
I'm
like that.
I didn't know that was an option for Santa. I've never heard that return. I didn't know there was a return desk for Santa toys.
I went like, Dear Santa, while I was very excited to open my present and receive a Dolly Wets-a-Lot, I was less excited when it turned out that the hose that she wets herself with was tuned more to a fire hose and less to a weak trickle of straw. I am now blind in both my left and right eyes, and I need help immediately.
I'm picturing it. They go to put the toys magic, because they all appear in a chimney. So I'm picturing the kids throw their toys into the fireplace. So I'm picturing that the toys magic away, and then magic right back in the kid's home with a note that's like, per the warranty, once you open the toy, you cannot return it. They must be unopened with the original receipt.
I'm very sorry, Julia, but store policy states that you are fucked.
Reddit. But so the Dudley
next
Moore
year
elf,
you'll get 2 gifts.
The Dudley Moore elf like shows up and he's like, I'm really sorry. This is clearly all my fault because this was my machine. And like gives back his assistant apron. And then there's a shot of Santa giving it to the other guy because duh. While Dudley Moore looks sad and he's like, he must not like me very much. And I was like, no, you literally, every toy you made broke.
And you resigned.
Like you can't be mad about this.
He wanted Santa to like beg him to stay, I guess.
Yeah, I guess he was trying to be that guy. So now John Lithgow with false teeth is doing...
I don't know why they put these Gary Busey teeth in his mouth.
He started talking, I was like, what is with these flippers?
They're huge. You could paddle several boats with them.
Yes.
If you took them out, you could make a riverboat wheel with the size of these flippers.
It's crazy.
But I love this sequence is like, I like it, but I'm like, why? This is just the exact sketch lifted and put in the movie. Speaking of, this is not the time or place for this.
Exact sketch.
Okay, so while I was home for Thanksgiving, we were watching some SNL clips with Mom and Dad, and we watched Eddie Murphy do this holiday baking championship sketch. Have you seen this?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, it's a very simple sketch. It's like the first person's cake is a disaster. The second person's cake is the famous person who's hosting. Their cake is an even crazier disaster. Like Eddie Murphy's catches on fire and starts like doing Evil Dead shit, and like Timothy Chalamet. Like so they do this thing. The next one is Heidi Gardner, whose cake is perfect, and the last one is Kyle Mooney, whose cake is sexually related of some kind. Like it's either a penis or something like that. So that's the sequence. It's like cast member disaster, that person changes. Second person is the host. Third person's Heidi Gardner. Fourth person is Kyle Mooney. And then it's like, you may also like this one. And so we put the other sketch on. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't realize they had brought this sketch back. It's almost identical. The only thing that changes is the gags of like the penis shaped thing for Kyle Mooney, what the perfect cake is. And
Weird.
And I'm like, that's so weird. Like, this is like almost it's functionally the same sketch. It's just slight variations in the jokes. Last week, they did it again with Timothy Chalamet.
Because I was you said Eddie Murphy. I was like, I just saw recommended the Timothy Chalamet one.
Yeah. The identical sketch with Timothy Chalamet, except this time it was like a poop joke with the cake that Timothy Chalamet made instead of a, Evil Dead thing. But I mean, it's the same sketch. And I was like, I guess they can get away with it because I didn't notice it at the time. I wasn't like, oh, I saw this a year ago. Like you forget about sketch comedy pretty easily, but it's just crazy to me that that's like, they're almost it's like, it's not a recurring sketch because all the judges are different and there's like slight variations in the setup. It's just like bizarre. They did the sketch again. Yeah. Anyway, this is the very famous one with Dan Aykroyd and
I will say it's slightly it's not the exact same as the Dan Aykroyd one, because the Dan Aykroyd is literally a bag of glass, and
this is a teddy bear full of glass.
But it's not a literal. This is a plastic bag of a Ziploc bag of glass with the cardboard label at the top.
Yes, but it's pretty ridiculous that they're like they make a joke in the SNL thing about something being flammable, and in this the guy takes a cigarette and puts it up to the little dolly, and then it's just like whoosh, and the whole table's on fire.
Yeah.
And then Lithgow's doing the like humana. I never saw that before. I'm so sorry. And then the next one is a teddy bear that the guy wrenches the head off, and it's just full of glass.
Nails, broken glass, and sand.
It's a bear of glass.
It's bizarre. Elves can teleport, apparently.
Yes, he teleports right into dirty New York City.
Grimy.
Dirty New York City.
Jason takes Manhattan dirty.
Yes.
And he sees an ad for John Lithgow, and they're all the stores are pulling the toys out of the windows because they're unsafe. So he's like, wow, those toys are flying off the shelves. I must go to this factory. Yeah. So he magics himself into the room, his like office. And when Lithgow sees him, he starts like teleporting around the room. And Lithgow's like, I don't have time. You're crazy. What?
Yeah, it is very silly. If all you have to do too is like the smallest of rewrites, which is, what? Get out of my office. Oh no, I'm actually a magical elf. Yeah, okay. No, really, I am. Poof. What? Oh, I guess you are a magical elf.
Do you want me to get out of I'll get out of your office. Poof.
Right. So they broker a deal to.
We are an hour and
Dudley
10
Moore.
minutes in, and we are now getting some kind of conflict. And it's not even there yet.
It doesn't even lead to the conflict you think, which is like Dudley Moore is trying to replace Santa, because that's not it. Dudley Moore is like, I'm going to make one gift and give it the same thing to every kid.
And I'm even his plan, I'm like, I don't get it. He's like, I'm going to advertise. And I was like, oh, so it's going to be a giveaway? And then they do an ad, and then Dudley Moore creates a flying car so that he can Santa and deliver all these lollipops. And I was like, then why did you advertise in the first place, Dudley? If you're just going to drop it off at a doorstep.
Well, because you need to advertise so that you get the credit for it.
Oh, maybe.
Because otherwise people just assume it's Santa, and Dudley Moore is like trying to prove to Santa that he still has value to the corporation. This movie is actually sneakily very corporatist.
Oh,
John Lithgow's is
also,
very much.
I just looked at the timestamp. I was like, we've been recording for an hour and 25 minutes, and I was like, oh right, because this movie doesn't happen until an hour and change into this movie. There's not much left of the movie.
Like, John Lithgow's character is obviously a super, like, greedy, money-hungry Scrooge McDuck type, but the way that they set up Santa, it's basically Santa Corp LLC.
Yeah. So he tells Lithgow, he's like, I'm going to give the toy away for free, and Lithgow is a cartoon character and, like, has a heart attack.
What?
Yeah. And when he says that, like, he basically jizzes in his pants when Patch says, I will do everything myself. You don't, like, I'm the only worker. And he was like, no payroll. Progresso soup.
And then he's like, well, how much do you get paid? And he's like, I don't get paid. You don't get paid?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I don't know anything about money. And he's like, good.
Go on, get out of here.
Like, I don't understand. Like, why did we bother making the Santa movie when we could have just made this movie? We're like,
if this movie is, you take the first 45 minutes or all the Santa bits and you just throw them in the garbage, and you start with Dudley Moore as an elf who tries to make manufacturing
I'm fine
better.
With this movie starting with Santa's run down, wants an assistant.
Yes.
That's
fair.
Your like diving board, and then you get into the Dudley Moore and all of that, and then it just progresses from there. You cut out 45 minutes of slow dirge bullshit.
Yes. Which, and like, the real killer of it is, who could possibly care? Like, who out there is going, man, I really wonder how Santa became Santa, and like how the reindeer, like maybe how the reindeer fly is one that kids do ask. Fine.
That's a real question, but that doesn't get answered.
That's a good one. But like, why is Santa's suit red? I don't know, and I don't care. Like, that seems irrelevant.
It's a red suit because that's the most eye-catching color.
Right. Or he just likes red is also an acceptable answer. Like, you know, if I think about this stuff as in, like, if a 5-year-old walked up to me and asked me the question, like, why is Santa's suit red? My answer would be because that's Santa's favorite color. And that would be a perfectly satisfactory answer.
Do you? Were you around? So, our mom puts out Christmas decor every
You're
year.
going to tell a story about me.
No, I'm not.
Of course I was around. Okay. Well, then we had very similar things happen to us, I think. Go ahead.
We'll have to go. And she has a ceramic nativity from Lennox, and then
Yeah.
she has, I think it's like Fisher Price or Play School. It's like little kids like for playing with, but it's a nativity scene. And so our very young cousin's child, or whatever, niece, whatever you're going to call that, was playing with it. And so I was on the floor playing with, you know, the donkeys and all this stuff. And she was like, it's very clearly like a barn because it's a nativity scene. And
Right.
she was like, who's that? And I was like, that's Jesus. Because that's the answer to that question.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it's because it's a little baby in a pile of hay. And she goes, why is he sleeping in a pile of hay? And I was like, you have reached the limit of my knowledge on this. I was like, I was like, because that's where he's sleeping. And Mom...
Maybe I've Mandela affected this, but I have a distinct memory of also one of our cousin's children going through this with you and like doing my best to explain the story. And then at one point turning to Mom for confirmation with something and her being like, oh, are you messing with them? And I was like, no, I'm trying to answer a question.
You know, like, Mom was like, Andrew. And I was like, that is baby Jesus. And that's where he's sleeping. Like, I have nothing beyond that. But that's it.
Yeah.
I think because that's my story.
I might have Mandela affected, but I like my memory of it is like that exact sequence of events occurring and Mom being like, hey, like, what are you telling that kid? And I was like, the real story to the best of my ability.
I got. That's Jesus and he's sleeping in the hay.
Yeah, I remember maybe I just Mandela affected it. Yes, I do recall that, obviously.
Mom is listening, screaming at her
for
phone
for sure.
They also reveal now, because the whole time Cornelia, the rich girl, her nanny or whatever, has been talking about her step uncle, which to me is the weirdest relative choice you could make.
John Lithgow's character is named BZ, and that's the only thing we get for the whole movie.
Yeah, I didn't get BZ. Was it supposed to be a reference to something?
I have no idea. I was curious if you had figured it out.
No, honestly, this would have been a great moment for the toy company being called XS.
Oh,
XS
yeah, that
Toys.
would have been solid. Yeah.
But so yeah, they keep talking about her step uncle, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then they do a dramatic reveal where, surprise, the only other adult man that we've ever seen in this movie is her step uncle, and they dramatically push in on his stupid bucktooth face.
It's not just buck teeth; they're all sticky outy.
Yeah, it's a bad veneer job.
Yeah, it is.
Also, they Patch didn't explain that he was going to fly and hand deliver these lollipops until all of a sudden there's a run, like a Evel Knievel Gonzo the Magnificent runway, and a blinking car. And I was like, what is happening?
Well, we need to stop here for a minute and talk about the coolest car that you could possibly have for this specific job.
It is. I love it.
This thing, Macy's should have bought this thing and made it drivable, and it should be ahead of Santa's sleigh every single year in the Macy's parade, and it's upset beautiful. That it isn't. It rules. It rules so hard. It's so cool.
Well, and they even thought, they were like, hey, gas it up, and they grab these, gas pumps, and the gas pumps are connected to strings of blinking, like
rope lights.
A rope light that just blinks and glows gold. And I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah, it rules. It rules so much. But I just love the design. It's like, how awesome would it be to have a person in an elf costume driving this thing, throwing candy canes to people down New York City
I'm surprised
streets?
Disney didn't steal that.
Yeah, I mean, that's also fine. Like, just it's stupid that this isn't a thing.
The front is 4 like toy soldier nutcrackers with drums, and then they lower their arms, and the drums turn sideways in their headlights.
Yes,
Brilliant.
It's so good. It's so good.
So now it's next Christmas now. It's been a whole year.
Yeah, it's like he delivers the lollipops. Lollipops are a huge hit because they make you float. And
that's what I'm saying. It's next Christmas after.
Oh,
okay. They're delivering the lollipops. Santa like goes into a house and sees them already there, and I guess I'm like, so can any elf just like magic into a house? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out too because they don't show Dudley Moore deliver anything.
No, they show that he can teleport and that his car can fly. So Santa goes to pick up Joe, and they fly away, and
he tells Santa all about what's going on with Dudley Moore. Like, oh, this guy's been on TV, and he's like telling us about this thing he's gonna bring us.
And Santa like hand waves it away, and so I mean. It is weird because they've only met for one night and we barely saw them together, but it's a cute, sweet little relationship. Right. It's just weird. So the next morning, I don't know if Cornelia knew her uncle was involved with the lollipop or not, because it seems like he's pretty absent.
Right. He doesn't seem to have much of a relationship with her. And also, it's her step uncle, so like, how close are they going to be anyway?
Why did we choose step uncle?
Yeah. I got the impression it's supposed to be that she's under his care because her parents are dead sort of vibes, because there's a nanny.
Why not just make it an uncle?
Yeah, I don't understand.
Like, the phrase step uncle just sounds fake to me.
Yeah. I guess to make him even more separate from her, sort of, like put them even further apart, but it's very strange.
I guess. So her nanny is like, don't you want to bite this lollipop, kid? Don't be a loser. Don't you want to eat the lollipop? And she's like, no, I said no, I don't want it. So her nanny is like, well, I'll eat it then. It seems such a shame to let it go to waste. And I was like, it's a novelty Christmas lollipop. It's gonna be gross.
Or additionally, there are at least 100 days she can eat this while it's still extremely fresh. Maybe she can just choose to have it another time.
Yeah. And then, like a psychopath, this nanny bites the lollipop.
She goes in there like that owl. Tootsie Pop owl.
Yeah, I was like,
Tootsie Pop
hey,
owl.
Mr. Owl, I didn't know you got a nanny job.
She's like, 1, 2, 3.
Except she skips 1, 2, 3. She literally pulls out and she's like, ooh, a lollipop. What? And then she starts floating.
She turns the camera and she has John Lithgow's teeth in, and she's like, these bad boys are titanium.
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
I can chop through the side of a house. She turns her head to the fireplace and just takes a mouth-sized bite out of a brick.
Yeah. And she starts floating like she's having fizzy lifting drink. And I was like, wait, what? Why didn't anyone mention before now that this was a thing that could happen? That was
right.
That was like, there was no mention that this was the intended effect.
Yeah, no, they talk about it like we're supposed to know. And I was like, I'm watching this movie actively. I'm taking notes about it. And I didn't know this was going to give people the power of flight. I feel like that should have been in the ad campaign.
Yeah, it should have been a big deal. Lithgow wears spats. Because there's this weird press conference in his conference room. And
we do need to talk about the dope montage of people eating the lollipop and flying, including a little kid who's like watching a basketball game, like licking his lollipop.
I like that one.
It rolls up to him and he picks it up and does like a Superman spear-shaped fly and then dunk. And I was like, all right, that's kind of great.
That was pretty rad. But all these reporters are like, what are the ingredients? How does it do this?
Oh, and the little kid who steals the cookies, that also rules. There's like a little boy.
And then I guess for good measure, we'll say the last one, which was two kids holding hands behind a fence. And as they walk, you reveal that the boy is like 5 inches shorter than the girl.
Yes. Sorry. I liked that bit. I thought it was good.
It was cute. But all these reporters are like, what are the ingredients? How does this work? And then they start to be like, also, I thought you were forbidden from doing anything by the Federal Trade Commission. And so Dudley Moore, I'm like, oh, is this going to be drama that like Dudley Moore's like, I can't do this with you. And then he gets like locked in. No. Why would they bother having any kind of real conflict in this movie?
Even the part where it's like, Dudley Moore's like, well, I'm going to leave now. Lithgow's like, you can't leave. You need to make more candy. And it's like, it's really not that scary of a conflict. It's like, they're trying to give you the impression that he's being held against his will. And it's like, he's been an elf. But like, he's been an elf. He's always been held against his will. This man has never had freedom.
Well, he goes, I'm going to go back home to the North Pole. And Lithgow's like, before you go, would you make a new batch, but even stronger, so they can fly? And he's like, sure, I guess. Don't know why he agreed to that.
And then this is the part where Lithgow, like, this part here, I was like, see, I really, like, I've liked this performance the whole way, but he's basically playing the movie studio executive that exists as a character on this podcast, because he starts flipping through the calendar and he's like, how about March 25th, Christmas 2? And it's like zooming in on his big flipper teeth.
However,
and his 2 fingers.
I was very annoyed at Christmas 2 when it could have been Chris March.
Sure. Yeah. Also good.
I was like, you're going to say it's March 25th and not be like, it's Chris March.
Right. Also, I feel like from a branding perspective, calling it Christmas 2 doesn't tie it to your organization. And perhaps you should have someone like Mrs. Claus around as a CMO to be like, well, actually, dearie, perhaps we make a new holiday and separate the branding a little.
Or do Christmas in July. I don't know.
Yeah, any of those would be good.
So all of a sudden, Joe is sick and climbs a gutter to get up to Cornelia's room. And she's like, you can sleep in the basement. No one goes there. And I was like, or your room. Like, can't he sleep on the other side of the bed that the door doesn't see? So they go downstairs and she like sets him up in a blow up raft with some like bath towels.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I thought he was your friend. This feels like you found a cat under your deck and you're like, your mom's like, fine, you can keep it in the basement.
You're a street urchin. You don't know any better.
Yeah, right? And this is where, not Dudley Moore, this is where John Lithgow's assistant shows up, who apparently is a doctor. The Wikipedia says Dr. Towser, and I was like,
did you not recognize this guy?
No.
He's the deputy from Jaws.
Oh.
He's the like dopey goofus deputy from Jaws.
But his character is a doctor. And
yes.
I don't remember that. So he shows up at the house and he's like, hey, turns out that if these candy canes get exposed to high heat, they will explode because they're from the North Pole, because the flying ingredient is from the North Pole, so it has to stay cold.
Right.
And they're like,
it's like the vaccine from Pfizer or Merck. I forget which one needs to be super cold.
It's Pfizer because only one hospital where I work can hold something that cold.
Okay, so this is the Dudley Moore version.
Yeah.
This is also the part I'm really glad we did Back to the Future for the Patreon bonus this month, because this is just the sequence from the Back to the Future ride, which is Christopher Lloyd being like, Biff is ahead of us in that flying car, and you've got to accelerate to 88 miles an hour and bump him, or those candy canes will go!
Yeah, that's 100% what this is. But so John Lithgow is like, how about we disappear to Brazil and leave this idiot elf to like be the scapegoat? Which is
really good writing of this character. Honestly, this whole Dudley Moore business is a fairly entertaining movie. It's just that the first hour is torture.
Yeah, skip to that. I wonder if this movie makes any sense if you just skip to Santa needs an assistant.
Yeah, I probably would. You could do it as like a 45-minute TV special.
Yeah.
I also really like the part where the assistant wakes John Lithgow up in the middle of the night. Lithgow's like smoking a cigar, and the Jaws guy is doing these like real short sentences, and Lithgow keeps going like, and finally he snaps and is like, just speak in long sentences. I'm tired of saying after every 3 words.
I like that.
I thought that was great.
So Joe sneezes and they kidnap him. I was like, you don't know how to silent sneeze, kid? This is a high pressure situation.
Yeah, especially a street urchin whose life is like lived on the margins. You'd think he'd know how to stifle a sneeze.
Yeah. So they stick him in the basement of the factory, and Cornelia writes a letter to Santa, and it magically gets to him.
Right.
And then this is where again, they're like, hey, Santa, 2 reindeer have the flu, so you're going to have to fly with 6 only to get to save your little orphan friend. And it's like, why? It has to be a budget issue.
It could be. So what I thought was about to happen was, by God, that's Rudolph's music. Like, that would totally...
I would have been, like, throw my laptop out the window mad if this movie waited until an hour and 40 minutes into an hour and 50-minute movie to be like, Rudolph is here.
There is an entire movie's worth of plot that unfolds in the last 24 minutes of this. It's bonkers.
Yeah, it's buck wild. So Santa flies down, picks up Cornelia. They go. Patch finds Joe. They fight for some reason.
Very briefly, but yes.
It's so dumb. And they're like, we're going to fly out of here with all the candy canes. Even though Joe heard they explode when they're around heat.
Right. And Joe doesn't think he needs to know that.
Yeah.
Although maybe that's the street urchin street smarts of like, he's like, oh, I have an advantage here. This guy doesn't know they're going to explode, so I'll just hop out at the last second and let this guy get blown up.
I'll grab a candy cane, suck on it, and fly.
That's a genius move, actually.
It could have been. The police come for Lithgow because the little girl's like, I called the police, but they didn't believe me. And then all of a sudden the police are like surrounding the building.
Right.
And John Lithgow like mainlines a bunch of candy canes and leaps out the window. And I will say, it's excellent dummy work, but it is not a fall. It is a fly.
Right. It's a reverse. I really liked there's like 3 great dummy bits in this last 5 minutes here.
Mm-hmm. So the reindeer, Santa, Cornelia, and the reindeer are like racing to catch up with the car, and they're like,
it's basically the pod race sequence from the first Star Wars prequel.
Very close. All of the film, the like shots here reminded me of Soren.
Yes.
Very much. But then Santa's like, the super duper looper is the only way we can save them. And I was like, why? Because I was thinking like, oh, they're going to get underneath them as that explodes and like scoop them up. But no, they loop around, they go under them, loop over them, and then are completely behind them again when they explode. And I was like, what did we do?
Yeah, it's by the nature of it being a perfect circle, it is never the only way to do anything because you start where you began or you end where you began. There's a movie where a character gets really mad at that, where someone keeps mixing up 180 and 360, and I can't remember what it is, but it's like a villain who eventually snaps and is like, if we do a 360, we'll be right back where we started.
So the car explodes, they catch them, there's a North Pole happy ending. The kids decide they're going to stay at the North Pole for a year.
Which is like really, really, really weird, especially because we don't know that the girl is an orphan, although it seems like she is.
No, she is. They say it.
Okay.
Because she's living with her step-uncle and her nanny.
And her step-uncle is now, as we'll find out momentarily, in actual space.
Yeah, I was like, that is not where I expected this movie to go.
So they're like, we're going to stay and live it to the North Pole. And the one elf's like, well, year. I guess I'll have to be a teacher then. And they're like, school. And then it's like, and I was like, okay. Who is that joke for? Those children who you think that joke's for have fallen asleep an hour ago.
Yes, they fell asleep 20 minutes in because they're like, Santa's boring.
Yeah, exactly. No one cares about this.
Can I have Whoppers?
Can I go to the bathroom? And then we have Lithgow in space as the final like punch out joke.
God.
Yeah, it's like I said, I think this movie stinks. I'm not recommending it
Stinks
to anyone for any reason. But I thought this would be a really fun podcast, and I feel like it provided really good fodder.
Oh, it definitely is a good podcast, but it is a terrible movie.
Yeah, it is really deeply bad. It's a mess. I mean, the first hour is so tedious and so boring, and then we finally get some interesting stuff, and you know, hardly anything is done with it. You have some pretty solid comedic talent in John Lithgow and Dudley Moore, and neither of them gets nearly enough to do. But there's so many parts that I really like. That car is really good. I like the set design. Most of the prop design's really fun. So there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, it's just it's your Christmas movie should not be nearly 2 hours.
No, there's just no excuse for that.
Your Christmas movie needs to be a tight 90.
100 at the very, very top end.
And that is only if you were like knockout funny.
Right.
I'm saying that as though I don't know how long my favorite Christmas movies are, actually.
All of them are too long. I guarantee it. For your new rule, I guarantee it.
I was going to say, because we just watched Home Alone.
Home Alone is a full 2. It's like an hour 49 or an hour 50. Home Alone 2 is a full 2 hours long.
Well, Home Alone 2 is...
It's funny. It's like there are parts of it I think are really good, and then a lot of it is just a total mess. It's also way more violent.
Oh, yeah. The traps he sets in that one are like murderous.
They're all murderous, yeah. I mean, so are the ones in the first one, but they're not as explicitly
the second
murderous.
one is like, I'm going to throw bricks off the roof of a building.
Right. Well, at one point, Joe Pesci drops a whole bag of wrenches on his head.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you just caved in a man's skull, Kevin. Congratulations. And because you weren't defending your own home, you can't use any sort of like home is your castle,
you're
whatever
SOL, buddy.
Castle doctrine. You're going to jail for a long time, kid. But yeah, I would not recommend Santa Claus the movie to anybody. But there are some really rad parts of it in terms of just the design and the pieces that make it.
I'm sure there's YouTube clips.
Yeah, if you really were curious, I'm sure you could find some pictures of this stuff. But yeah, what a weird movie.
Oh, such a disappointment.
Yeah. Not what I was expecting based on the trailer, but super fun to talk about because of how insane it was. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate it, and would love a small gift from you if you have the time, is to take a moment and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get it. If you don't do iTunes, send us a screenshot and we will read that on the air, even if you say something mean. So don't do that. Maybe
alternatively,
if you
a really great free gift is to send your favorite episode to a friend and be like, hey,
absolutely,
this is my favorite episode. I think it'll make you laugh.
Tell 2 friends. And then maybe they'll tell 2 friends, and then maybe they'll tell 2 friends, and it's the greatest pyramid scheme on earth because nobody gets ripped off. They all just get a comedy podcast. That's it.
It's a great free gift.
Yes. Thank you again for listening. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. You can also find us on Facebook and at Dissect the 80s on Twitter. And we always love to hear from you. If you want to write us an email, ask us a question, it's dissectingthe80s@gmail.com. We just started a new Patreon thing where we're going to be answering questions in our monthly newsletter for people who are members of the Patreon. So if you have a question you'd like to see us answer, it's dissectingthe80s@gmail.com. That'll be for our Patreon folks who will answer those questions for you. So if you got one, send it our way. So yeah, review the show, check us out online, and keep listening. And we'll be back, of course. No break here. Rolling on into 2021. An exciting month. The return of a theme month that we really enjoyed in the past. Canonuary, exploring the feature films of the Canon Film Group. And the first one up is our favorite mushmouth, Sylvester Stallone, as Adrian Cobretti in Cobra. That will be slightly more than 2 weeks from now since we dropped this episode early. The first of Canonuary coming your way on the 11th of January. So until then, thank you so much for listening. I have been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until next time,
don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.